Welcome to Ask the Expert, a web series designed to provide you with practical information on business and finance. I am your host, Nicole Pride. I am so super delighted today to have with us America's wealth coach, Deborah Owens. Deborah has more than 20 years of experience in the financial services industry, and she is on a mission to help women overcome their fear of investing. Deborah is the author of three books: A Purse of Her Own, Nickel and Dime Your Way to Wealth, and her latest book, Wealth Secrets. And she is the founder of Wealthy You, which gives greater access to women to obtain information that's really typically and traditionally only obtained by financial managers. And she provides curriculum, coaching, and community. So, welcome, Deborah. We're so super excited to have you here with us today.
Oh, Nicole, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about this conversation.
Me too. I know personally that I've benefited from your services and coaching in the past. So I'm super excited that we're sharing some of your expertise with our community today. So, Deborah, I touched on a little bit about you having more than 20 years of experience in the financial services industry. Can you share with our community what that looked like?
Well, the first thing I want to say, I started when I was 5. No, just kidding. No, actually, it's going on 3 decades. So I wear that, proudly, and I'm grateful for the journey. And, really what I will say, the journey within financial services really gave me great insight. And I'm someone personally who didn't come from wealth. And yet, when I took my first job as a receptionist at an investment company, I wondered why I had never been exposed to it. But I'm sure, like many of your uh, folks in the audience,
Mhm.
that they probably didn't come from wealth either. And that's part of the D Free Mission movement. I understand that is really to make this knowledge more accessible. And that was really my goal. The reason I focus on women specifically, I got my start in just leaving the industry and wanting to focus on women because of my own mother, seeing her circumstances and separating from my father after 30 years of marriage. And
I was happy to hear about your passion about working with women, and you were talking about that was inspired, unfortunately, by the divorce of your parents. And you're sharing a little bit about the, I guess, the financial state that your mom was in during the divorce.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And, I was a young woman at the time, and I was in my first year of college. And I dropped out because I didn't want my mother to worry about me. But long story short, that is what was the catalyst for me looking for a job and stumbling into this investment company and wondering why I didn't know any of this information. And then as I went on in my career, I spent over a decade with a large company, investment company, and rose the ranks to vice president and worked with a lot of high net worth individuals. And what I then saw was, wow, not only there are levels to it, right? And so much of those levels are based on your current economic standing. And my thought was, wow, the people who needed it the most weren't getting access to the information. And that caused me to leave the industry and chart my path. I started writing books. I toured with Bishop Jakes and his God leading ladies early on, and just with the mission of wanting to financially empower women. Because quite frankly, Nicole, what I came to understand is that my mother's situation was the rule and not the exception. What I mean by that is that 9 out of 10 women are going to be responsible for their own finances. They will either never marry, they will either marry, separate, as my mother did, or divorce or predecease their husbands. And now I have an even greater sense of urgency around women because there is going to be a huge, great wealth transfer. According to a study by McKinsey, in 2030, women will in the US will control $3 trillion in assets. That's a significant amount of money. And so it's imperative that not only do women get knowledgeable, but also that they prepare their offspring and the folks who will inherit this wealth properly.
So, can we just level set for our audience today? What do you mean by wealth? So, your eyes were opened when you started working at the investment firm. And so, what were things that were totally outside of your realm of thinking that said, "Hey, there's more to this wealth thing than I thought."
That's a great question and a great way for me to segue into my most recent book, Wealth Secrets, which is really the insight that I gained from that access.
Mhm.
And what I would say, the blueprint that I was given by my parents was the traditional financial success blueprint, and that is the pursuit of the American dream, the career, the six-figure income, the large house. And what I began to understand very early on in my career is that the wealthy have a different blueprint. And that blueprint is not about status symbols. It's about turning your income into assets so that those assets will now earn the income and you're not working for it. So that was, primarily the first insight is that that wealthy people don't buy the things, they buy the companies that make the things.
Mm-hmm. So, and just to make sure everybody's on the same page, so what are you specifically referring to when you talk about assets?
When I talk about assets, I'm talking about assets that appreciate in value. So
Mhm.
asset, your house is an asset, right? However, one of the things that I noticed with wealthy people is they play Monopoly. That first house is not that McMansion. That first house is purchased with the objective being to make that their first asset that will generate wealth, right? Or generate income. Secondly, so that's real estate. The next asset is a stock in investing in those same companies that you buy products for. I mean, I've got an Apple phone, I've got a Mac, right? So rather than just buying these products, I'm going to buy the companies that make the products. And there you can invest in bonds even, and bonds are basically an IOU where you loan your money to a company or you loan your money to the government. Those are like savings bonds, that sort of thing, and they pay you a return. And what became really clear was not only did wealthy people invest, but they diversified. They had they transferred their money or invested their money in different types of investments, in different, even in the stock realm, rather than just being in one type of stock. They diversify within that realm, and that's why they were able to acquire wealth because those assets were appreciating over time, and in many cases, they inherited those assets. So they didn't start from scratch as many of us do as first generation investors. They already had a leg up, if you will.
Mhm, mhm. So there's a few things that you said. One being the investments, right? And so a lot of people, their introduction to investments may be starting their 401k at their jobs, and so moving beyond the 401k, it sounds like you're saying a good place to start is looking at what you consume. Is
Well,
that,
yes. I mean,
yeah?
but no, I'll be honest with you. What I do believe is for many people, investing through their 401k is a great way to begin the journey, right?
Mhm,
And in many cases, you don't have the opportunity to buy individual stocks in that 401k. But you do have the opportunity to invest in mutual funds. And mutual funds are simply professionally managed pooled funds that you have a portfolio manager that manages those funds, and it is his responsibility to get performance. But what I do find for far too many people is rather than understanding and fully benefiting from their employer sponsored retirement plan, they're passive. and they really don't understand how they can get a higher return simply by um, being able to analyze and identify the investments that over time will outperform the average, if you will. And that's really what I believe, Nicole, is imperative, is that people I often say people are 10 feet away from gold. They just don't understand it, so they can't see it. So, what I really want to encourage viewers to do is to start where you are, but start by getting the financial knowledge you need to understand what those opportunities are for you.
Hmm. And I think that being a little bit more critical, if you will, of those 401k plans when you get to that point where you're saying, hey, is there a way I can maximize this? Working with someone to really scrutinize the investments in the portfolio to seeing how you can increase your return on the investments. So
Absolutely.
that's great advice. Thank you. And so let's talk about your book, Wealth Secrets. So what inspired you to develop this book?
Oh, well, Wealth Secrets is a labor of love. And it's a labor of love because this is the first book through which I was able to give real life examples of people who apply the concepts that we teach in Wealthy You, and they achieved a financial transformation as a result.
Mhm.
So in the book Wealth Secrets, what the reason why I call them secrets is because these are the things or the not this is the knowledge that you typically don't learn through your formal education.
Mhm.
And Nicole, what I often find is there's so much shame around not knowing. We have so many people who've invested and have acquired and have great achievements academically, but unfortunately, that bachelor's degree, that master's degree, that PhD, that MSW, that MD, what is lacking in that education is the most valuable knowledge of all, and typically you don't learn it in your education, and that is the knowledge of how the financial markets and how to build wealth, how to turn your income into wealth. We are typically taught how to earn an income, but not how to turn that income into wealth. And so in the first book, I really challenge four myths that we're told will lead us to financial success. But unfortunately, I believe the wealth gap is an indication of why buying into those myths will not take you to the promised land, if you
Right.
will.
Mhm.
And that being that, a college career is going to, the more college, the more money you're going to earn. That student loan is debt is good debt. And that a big house, right, is how you build wealth, and that finding that corporate career is going to be the ticket to financial success. Well, I know if we look at the stats for people of color in particular, what we see is that often we end up with a lot of student loan debt. And because of some of the careers that we choose, we don't necessarily get that return on investment. You look at the fact that Black women specifically, half of Black women earn less than $50,000 a year. You look at the fact that even through home ownership, buying that big house doesn't necessarily allow us to, sometimes we become house poor, and also sometimes our homes don't appreciate as quickly as our counterparts. So in the book, I really challenge some of these myths, and I call it the middle class mindset, and the fact that we need to make the shift from that middle class mindset to that wealth mindset. So that's the first, what do I want to say, insight, and how I set the stage for delivering the rest of the secrets that I talk about in the book.
Mhm. So if one of our viewers are one of those people who bought into the myths, they have what you would consider a decent job, They have their home, they have some student debt. Where do you go from that point?
Well, the first point, it's the first secret. And one of the first secret is to focus on increasing your net worth. Oftentimes we're told to earn more income. And in fact, when we earn more income, we simply spend more. So the first secret is if you will make your decisions based on whether particularly your decisions with your income based on whether or not it's going to increase your net worth, you're going to make different decisions. And so in that manner, Nicole, what you begin to think about is for every outlay, is this going to increase or decrease your net worth? You'll make different decisions, right? If
Right.
you decide that you're going to increase the amount of your income that you're putting in your 401k plan, is that going to increase your net worth over time? It absolutely is. And it's probably going to reduce your tax liability right while you're at it. People often ask me, oh, well, yeah, I have a lot of home equity in my house. What should I do with it? Well, if you're going to use the equity in your home, you want to buy another asset, right? Because all that you still have to service the debt, right?
Right.
And so the point I'm making is the first secret is really focus on increasing your net worth. You're going to end up with a different outcome and be on your path to wealth.
And I think the key, what I hear you saying too, is that these aren't quick get rich schemes, right? You have
No,
to
man.
have the long term vision, right? And stay steady and just keep making consistent steps, focused steps that will get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, that's great advice, Nicole. And I really believe that if you think about anything in life, anything of value, right, real value that stands the test of time, it does take time.
hmm Yes. So, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, I think I saw um, a little bit about what your new book, Wealth Secrets Address, is talking about unlocking potential income streams, right? And so, how do you go about assessing what those income streams would look like?
Well, I in one chapter in the book, one of the exercises that we encourage folks to do, and it's one of the first things we start out with in the book, and it's called the second secret. Really, is your superpower, right? And so your superpower is a function of that skill that you do really, really well. But not only that, it creates value for others. So, what is the skill set that you have that you've developed over time that you can make someone else's life better for, right? That you solve a problem for them with. And then that really is the key to creating that additional, one of the ways to create an additional income stream. One of the pathways that many of the folks in our Wealthy You community, they begin to think about, okay, what are the things that I can do and consult and earn additional income, and that additional income can then become that income stream that becomes that budding business, if you will. But it'll allow you to do some other things too. That income can allow you to leverage tax advantages because that's income that is 1099. You could set up another retirement account with it. You can offset some of the expenses that you have in your household. Those are the kinds of things that we talk about in Wealthy You, right? And that's unlocking your wealth potential and beginning to look at things from a long-term view of your skill set is an asset.
Agreed. Yeah, that's really good. And essentially, that's what you did when you pivoted from working in the financial services industry, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? It is true. But here's the funny thing, Nicole, I struggled for a long time because I was focused on my passion. And
Mm,
my passion really was giving people access to the insight that I hadn't had access to.
right.
But that really wasn't the premise of a business, right?
Mm,
And so what I had to begin to understand, and it's one of the concepts that I talk about in our workshops, right? And I do want to invite people to just join our Wealthy You, go to wealthyu.com and just join in some of our free workshops. And one of the points that I make is that your superpower is a function of not only your passion, right? And not only what you believe your purpose is, but the other key is how do you create value? And the most important is what does the world need, right? So in terms of what does the world need, what problem do you solve? And so where I think people get confused, and it certainly took me, over 5 years before I became profitable, was I had to begin to understand what problem do I solve and what unique value can I bring to the marketplace? And what became really, really clear to me that there was a gap, if you will, between the financial services provider and the individual, right? And so, really, the Wealthy You community and my company was really designed now. I finally figured out the gap that we fill. And that gap is to give people that basic foundational information that they did not learn in their traditional through their traditional or formal education. And so it's not enough for, here's what was happening, Nicole, is I came out of the industry and I was real active and an advocate in many of the associations, from Quad-A, the African American Financial Professionals, and a number of organizations. And so I knew a lot of advisors who I trusted, but I would refer people to them, and two things would happen. They either wouldn't call or they would go have the first interview and never go back. And so I began to try to figure out, well, why is this happening?
Mhm.
And the reason it was happening is because there was, one, a lack of trust, right? And when that individual went to sit down with that advisor, they didn't understand what they said, right? So they were very fearful of and skeptical of the information. And so Wealthy You is really designed to help them be able to actually understand what investments are, actually be able to evaluate a recommendation from a financial professional, and be able to sit at the table and ask questions. And when that happens, then those recommendations, and it'll be a partnership, and they will comply. So that's, what I had to understand. And I would submit to you that anyone in the marketplace who wants to be successful as an entrepreneur, or as someone who's going to build a practice based on their skill set, is that they understand that it's not about you. It's about the problem that you solve, and you really being able to create value for that customer as a result of them taking advantage of your services. So going back to Wealth Secrets, that's what I'm really proud of, because in each chapter of the book, I share how an individual went from that went through that financial transformation, from not knowing, from not understanding, to really taking ownership of their financial success.
Yeah, I love that, because basically you're empowering people, right? And so taking that fear out of the equation allows them to come up with the best financial strategy for them in a way that they can understand, and be able to have intelligent conversations with their financial advisors. So that's awesome. One of the things that we pride ourselves in at Ask the Expert is that people who come on, they live the experience, right? And so you just talked about a practical element of developing additional income streams, and you were saying that when you did leave, you wish you had more information. In those first 5 years, you didn't make the best decisions, perhaps, and you didn't make profit, in those first 5 years. So how did you make it during those 5 years?
Oh, well, first of all, I had a pretty successful husband, so I did I did okay. in that regard. But
Yeah.
the funny thing is, at one point he said to me, he was like, "Well, you know what, honey, you kind of like you're pretty you came out of a pretty high earning career, man. If this isn't going to work, if this is just going to be a hobby and a write off, maybe you want to go back back and get a job." So, good lesson I think for all of us to learn is that I know, with social media, you see all of these people and they talk about all these things that they're making, but entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. And I do think that how did I overcome that? I got help, right?
Mhm.
So I hired consultants, I hired coaches, but I hired them based on their ability to show proof. And that proof was that they took someone like me who was trying to transition from a corporate career and grow a business, and that they could show me a track record of others that they had helped do that. I've had several coaches, and I continue to hire consultants and coaches because I think so often we buy into this idea because there's so much information that we could just figure it out ourselves, right? And one of the reasons that I started Wealthy You is, listen, I've written 4 books now, right? So my first book was Confident Investing: A Wealth Building Guide for Women. My next book was A Purse of Your Own. My next book, and major publishers, right? Macmillan, Simon and Schuster. Oh, and you have a copy. That's right, right? And now Wealth Secrets. Now, I know in this audience, many of the folks they've got every book in the world. They've got, Susie Ormans, Glenda Bridgeforth, who else am I thinking of? Lynette Calfani, books on every topic. But the most important thing people need to understand is that knowledge is not power. It's not. Knowledge correctly applied is power. And
Implementation.
so if you really want to get further and faster, what I had to recognize was that I had to cut a check for speed. And so what I meant by that is I needed to be willing to invest with someone who could take me down a path because I'm a first generation entrepreneur, right? And I think that this is great that we're talking about that because I think it applies to first generation investors, right? We don't have anyone. We're trying to figure this out on our own. And it's great that we have so much information, but how do you discern? And that's why I think the most important skill set any of us can acquire is the ability to the knowledge of how to build it, the knowledge of how to build a business, the knowledge of how to build wealth. Those are the most valuable assets.
Yeah, I think there's so many things that you're touching upon, but definitely the theme that I hear is getting the support that you need, right? So you're very much an advocate of having a financial planner or advisor. You're just helping people get to a point where they can have more meaningful discussions and planning, right? And whether it's starting a business or investing, is getting the support of a professional to guide you to come up with a plan and just not
And I
do it
do think
through the
it's
willy-nilly.
even, Nicole, I would say it's even greater than that. Like, so here's the other lesson I learned is for the earlier when I launched Wealthy You in 2015, initially it was me doing private coaching because I didn't really feel like people would they were already afraid. They probably wouldn't want to share their fears, their ignorance in a group.
Right.
And then COVID happened. And COVID, even though I had Wealthy You community and I had grown it, typically the conversations that were the most relevant were not being had in a group, right? And so the other advice I want to give folks is it is your circle. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, get in a community of successful entrepreneurs, people who have grown their business. If you want to build wealth, Get in a community of other people who have that same aspiration. And what I will tell you, the significance of that is how you stay the course, right? That's how you don't go off track, because you are with like-minded people who have the same aspirations that you do. And as a result, when you see them overcome, when you see someone going from not understanding what a stop was to actually being able to analyze one, then it's going to give you the validation and the proof that if they can make that transformation, you can too. I will say the greatest lesson that I've learned is the power of community, and the power of community and what it can do. Wealth is an inside job. And that's what I want the industry itself to understand, that so much of our ability to achieve the level of financial success we desire and deserve is not knowledge itself. It's the accountability, it's the support, it's the beliefs, it's the attitudes, it's the behavior that when you internalize it, even within Wealthy You, I was giving a talk to the community last night, and I got really tearful. And the reason I became tearful and emotional was because the members on our team have all had their own financial transformation. And so to watch these women who are now facilitating and teaching and helping and supporting others go from literally not being able to turn on a Zoom screen and lacking confidence to now, sharing their own story and supporting others, it's amazing. And that's what I feel like in this industry that we have to become more aware of. We are dealing with people, and people are complicated, but at the same time, people are human. And I do believe what COVID helped me to see is the human side of things, and the fact that we needed to connect with folks on a different level. It's not just pitching a product or telling them that we can help you. It's more of, we understand where you are. We were there too. If you need help, here's our hand and let us help you. And I think the industry could learn from that as well.
Well, I definitely feel your passion. It's just coming through across the screen, and so I think it's really important for our viewers to understand is to find people, as you said, to partner with, accountability partners, communities, Facebook communities, who have the same goals, same aspirations, so that you can encourage each other. I thought you were about to preach, Deborah. Iron sharpens iron. I was feeling it. There's a question from one of our viewers, and they ask, are individual stocks better than mutual funds?
Here's whenever someone asks me for a recommendation, I says it depends,
Right.
right? So if you're the most important thing, that's what I want people to understand, that you have everything you need to be everything you need to be. The only thing standing between you and the financial success you desire and you deserve is the knowledge of how to do it. And so to that end, I really believe that for most people, a mutual fund is a great place to start. And all a mutual fund is a pool where people pool their money together, and a professional money manager is responsible for now investing it on their behalf. And based on their objective, which is, if you are trying to build wealth and you've got a long-term view and your money want your money to grow, probably the best place for you to start is in a mutual fund, something like an S&P 500 index fund that has the 500 largest stocks in it. The key, Nicole, and I want to say this to this viewer, is to get started.
Right.
Time is the most valuable asset.
Right. So I know that you have your own event coming up and that this interview, which is so good, has to come to a close very soon. So before we say farewell for now, if you want to remind people about how they can find out more information about what you're doing, any social media handles, and then leave us with your final thoughts about whether it's about legacy, about what you're doing next with your organization, what you want to leave us with.
I would say that the best place for people to find out all things Wealthy You is just to go to our website. It's just wealthy, the word wealthy, the letter U.com. You'll learn more about all of the projects that we have going on. We give challenges. We have our own show, our own platform, Get Wealthy. I'll be touring next year, of course, with the book. If you're an organization and you want to partner with us, that's the best place to do it. You can just click contact us. And here's what I want to leave our viewers with today. And it really is essential. I want everyone to understand this, is that you can build wealth in a generation. It is possible. We have women building their first 6, 7, and some are running for 8 figures in our community. But not only can you build it in a generation, but guess what? You can lose it in the next. And so the message I want to give everyone, who can hear my voice today, really is that the most important legacy you can leave your children, your heirs, your family is the knowledge of how to build wealth. And I want to thank the D3 movement for having me on Ask the Expert, Nicole. Thank you so much for all that you're doing in order to close the wealth gap and make this knowledge more accessible. I thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we're so delighted that you made time out of your busy schedule to stop in and chat with us today. So thank you very much. So there you have it, folks. There was so much information. I encourage you to rewatch this, share this with others. Thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. Have a good one.
Thank you.